That was fun.
Well, I'm not sure if you're all aware, but my screen froze and I had to leave and come back on. So I missed the Unity concept and I came on during the song. So if that happens again while I'm doing my talk, I will leave and come back. So don't go anywhere. All right. So um, Saturday is July 4th. I just can't believe that actually yes, Saturday is July 4th. And it just, time seems to be going so quickly. But we're looking forward to having a July 4th weekend and to celebrate our freedom and independence. Um, It'll look a little different this year. You know, if we go to picnics and barbecues, we'll be following the safety protocol of continuing to be 6 feet apart, wearing masks. But even in the midst of taking precautions, we're still there together to share with one another and to celebrate our freedom, celebrate our independence. Um, you know, all of this happened just about an hour from here in Philadelphia in Independence Hall. Our founding fathers met, wrote, and signed the Declaration of Independence, and 11 years later gathered there to create the Constitution. It all took place in that same building. Those 56 men knew that if they were caught, they were going to be hung for treason, but they did it anyway because they knew they had to bring about change. Now, I just got another message saying that my internet is unstable. So I will continue as long as I can. And as I said, if I get booted, I'll come back on. But the thing about these men, even though, you know, they knew that they were going to be hung for treason if they were found out, but they had something greater that they wanted to create. So their focus wasn't on what they would gain personally. They wanted freedom, equality. They wanted to be able to govern themselves and have laws that were fair and served all people and not oppress them. Now, our founding fathers were deeply embedded in faith. The power and the presence of God, of Christ within them. The 12 powers within them were activated. And they moved knowing that Spirit was guiding them. They demonstrated the powers and the guidance of the divinity within them. Galatians 5:13 says, "For you were called to freedom." They heard that call. Now, it took Thomas Jefferson 17 days to write the Declaration of Independence, and then an additional 2 days for the final edit after the delegates reviewed it. So it was a total of 19 days. Now, what's really interesting about the number 19 is that in numerology, if we reduce it, it equals a 1. And the 1 is the number of beginnings, new beginnings. And this was the beginning of a new nation. So the first paragraph of the Declaration of Independence reads, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impelled them to separation." So what all that is saying is that when a relationship does not respect the rights that God has given to all individuals, then it's time to sever that relationship. And in that case, they were talking about the governing powers. The Declaration goes on to say, We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So what they're telling us here is that people create the government, and the government gets the powers with permission from those that they are governed. That's us. And how do we do that? We do that by voting. So basically, the Declaration of Independence says that no one has the right to abuse anyone. And when abuse occurs, it's time to remove the abuser and set up a new system. And if that system becomes abusive, then we have the right and the freedom to change that. Again, how do we do that? We do that by being heard. We do that by voting, which is why we should never underestimate the privilege and the power of our vote. We know that the founding fathers had high ideals and were out for the good of all people. They were human and subject to all the compromises human beings have, including egos. They knew that those in power could be abusive. They were experiencing it right there, then, and that's what caused them to revolt. That's what caused them to revolt. Now, I'm going to remind everyone again to please mute your mics because we can hear a lot of sound in the background. Okay. Again, they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So now think about that. Self-evident that all men are created equal. Are they? If you look within the context of the time period in which that was written, it really should have read, all white male landowners are created equal. Women were not equal. Indentured servants were not equal. Slaves certainly were not equal. Slavery was definitely a hot issue, and 56 signers of the Declaration, out of the 56 signers of the Declaration, only 15 did not own slaves. And even some of those who were opposed to slavery still had slaves. But the writers and the signers of the Declaration knew they had to start somewhere. So they had the wisdom and the foresight to know that civilization would continue to evolve. And in that evolution, the needs of society would change. So when they wrote the Constitution, they left provisions for amendments to be written. So as consciousness changed and as people recognized the needs of humanity were not being met, the Constitution could be updated through the amendments to provide for the evolution of the citizens of this country. And as humanity evolved, we realized that there were laws that, while once may have seemed appropriate, were no longer appropriate. In 1865, the 13th Amendment was created to outlaw slavery. But it took 2 years for that to be enforced. Andrew Johnson's administration at that time created black codes to control the labor and monitor the behavior of former slaves and African Americans. They were no longer owned, but they certainly were not equal. 2 years later, in 1867, with the passage of the Reconstruction Act, newly emancipated Black people gained a voice in government for the first time by winning elections. But at that same time, that same year, the KKK was formed. So it wasn't the end to the mistreatment of Black people. Now, it's not my intention here to deliver a history lesson, but on a moral level, when it comes to freedom and equality, we need to know our history so that we can eliminate the mistakes of our past. You know, we've seen amendments over the year. We had the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. We had the 19th Amendment so that women could gain the right to vote. In 2015, same-sex marriage, was recognized as part of equal rights. And just 2 weeks ago, it was voted in that the LGBTQ community could no longer be discriminated against in the workplace. We are forever evolving, forever growing. We see that we continue what our forefathers envisioned: freedom, independence, and equality for all. But let's look at what freedom is. It's defined as, the first definition, the state of being free or at liberty rather than in confinement or under physical restraint. So that means not being confined in any way. The second definition is the power to determine action without restraint. And that means we have the ability to make our own decisions. The third definition is personal liberty as opposed to bondage or slavery. And that means that we have the ability to be who we are without any restraints, the freedom to just be who we are. Now, if we look at the word independence, it's defined as freedom from the control, influence of others. And the second definition of independence is competency. And to be competent means that we have acquired the skills, the knowledge, and the capacity to be self-sufficient. So what's clearly stated there is that there's a responsibility that comes with independence. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Freedom makes a huge requirement of every human being. With freedom comes responsibility. For the person who is unwilling to grow up, the person not willing to carry his own weight, this is a frightening prospect." So again, there's a level of maturity and a huge level of responsibility and accountability that comes with being free. We're free to think any thoughts we would like, and we're responsible for what they manifest, what we manifest through those thoughts. We're free to say anything we want, and we're responsible for the results of those words. We're free to behave in any manner we want and to take action in any way we want, and we're responsible for what is reaped by those behaviors and those actions. The choices we make create what we see around us. So we understand that huge responsibility that comes with being free. Now, the other word that we'll need to look at here today is equality. The Declaration says all men are created equal. So let's look at those definitions. The first is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. Equal in status, rights, and opportunities. Have we fulfilled that? Not completely. The thing is, can we ever really be free and independent and equal in the world of form? And I think it's something that we as loving spiritual beings aspire to achieve. We aspire to see each human being as a divine individual expression of God. But on an earthly level, in the world of form, we're just judgment machines. We're forever judging things without even realizing it. And yes, discernment is very important. But discernment means using good judgment, not being judgmental. And there's a difference. Now, we use the power of wisdom to discern. You know, we know not to put our hands in an open flame. That's discerning. That's using right judgment. But the judgment that I'm alluding to by saying we're judgment machine is about what the ego does. The ego looks at everything and has a judgment, a perception of what they see. Their perceptions are based on their history, and then they label what they see as good or bad. On some level, on a deep level, our forefathers knew this. And by saying we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When they said that, they were planting seeds, seeds based on divine laws that every human being was created equal in the eyes of God and should be treated that way. So here we are 244 years later, and on the earth plane, we're still struggling with the idea that all people are created equal and should be treated as such. There's still such great controversy around this idea, and it's so very unfortunate. But we are the light workers. We are the carriers of the torch. We are the ones that can bring about change. And as spiritual beings, we are charged with affecting change in the world. Knowing that we are divine beings created equal by God, we are the ones that are charged with creating that and making that happen. How do we start? Well, we start with ourselves. It starts with awareness, being aware that whenever we have a negative thought, whenever we have a judgmental thought about another person, place, or thing, we can stop in that moment, recognize that thought, be aware of it, and change it. The key here is awareness. We can't affect change without awareness. Now, this doesn't mean that we condone negative behavior. This doesn't mean that we don't take action in the world. This means that we do not add to the negativity of that moment. We stop, breathe, move past the place of judgment to a place of love, and take action from that loving place. That's what peaceful protest is about. It's looking at what does not serve all people equally and standing up to change that. Not with hate, but with love. You cannot defeat hate with hate. We need to bring love to the hate, light to the darkness. And we do that one thought, one action at a time. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore said, "In divine mind, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. Love is the great harmonizing principle known to man." So what he's saying here is that we are here to bring love to every situation that we face. It's the harmonizing principle. Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore said, "Stop trying so hard to know that everything is as it should be. Just rest your mind and heart and emotions and body in God mind. When you are truly thinking God, you cannot struggle to do anything." When we function from our Christ level, from our divinity, we remain in the flow and nothing is a struggle. Our very beingness is peace, exudes peace. Have you ever been in a room where one person walks in and that energy and peace of love is so strong that it changes everything? Well, that's who we are. We're charged with that, with bringing that peace, that freedom, that equality into the world. There is only one true avenue to freedom, independence, and equality, and that is reliance and dependence and faith in God. Real freedom is being liberated from everything that blocks us from fully developing and realizing our Christ nature. Real freedom is seeing the Christ in all people and having the courage, fortitude, and power to speak words of truth to make that happen for all human beings, regardless of the color of their skin, their religious beliefs, whether or not they're a member of the LGBT community, or anything that may seem out of norm for mainstream population of this world. Freedom, independence, and equality is achieved in knowing that we are one with God, that there is only God, and we are one with all living things, and that power and presence is within each of us. And yes, we need to know that even for those people who have fundamentally different beliefs and behaviors that we do. Again, we don't condone negative behavior. We look beyond it to truth principles, and we function from the level of truth. Jesus in Matthew 25:40 said, "Truly I tell you, and as much as you have done it for one of the least of my brethren, you did it for me." We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those seeds were planted 244 years ago, and it's up to us to continue to water and nurture those seedlings so that they continue to grow into strong, healthy, solid plants that's recognized and appreciated by all. With that, when that happens, that will be the time when all humanity experiences freedom, independence, and equality. So I invite you now to get comfortable in your seats and just allow yourselves to breathe as we move into our meditation. So as you breathe, allow yourselves to become more and more relaxed. Allow that feeling, that presence of love that is you, allow that to radiate and permeate your entire being. Allow yourselves to know that when we use the word I, we refer to all humanity as one. There is only God. So there is only the one. There is I. And I hold these truths to be self-evident, that I am created equal in the image and likeness of God, that I am a spiritual being, living in a spiritual world governed by spiritual law. And it is through fully embracing my humanity that I bring this truth forward. I am endowed by my Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are wholeness of body and emotions, peace of mind, abundant supply, joy, happiness, and eternal life for all. to claim these rights, my divine inheritance. I invite the activity of the Holy Spirit to dissolve any fear, doubt, judgment, and anxiety from my mind and heart. I also invite this loving activity of God to help me resolve any chaos that may exist. And I resolve this through love and knowing that I am peace. I affirm that I am free in consciousness and have within me the ability to change my life by changing my consciousness. And in changing my consciousness and my life, I contribute to the elevation of the collective consciousness so that all of humanity realizes equality. I pledge my time, talents, thoughts, substance, and my all to live a Christ-centered life where all humanity is treated as equals. I affirm there is only one. And now within me, I allow Spirit to speak to me as to what I can do to remain forever conscious of this prayer presence within me. So I move deeper and deeper into the silence, and I just listen. And now I'd invite you to bring to mind anyone who may be in need of prayer. We surround these people with love and light and know that there's a power and presence within them that will move them through anything that they may be experiencing in their life, whether it be physical, emotional, spiritual, or mental. We affirm their oneness and their wholeness. And we hold in prayer anyone who is in conflict, anyone who is being treated poorly, anyone who is looked at negatively. And we surround our world leaders in the light and pray for them that they may expand their consciousness and realize that there is only one. That as they do to others, they do to themselves. And that there is only one enemy. And that enemy is siding with fear instead of siding with love. And we once again affirm our wholeness and our oneness and know that we are divine beings, the torch bearers carrying the light of truth in the world. Amen. And I invite you to bring your consciousness back into the room where you are, back into your body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And welcome back. And now this is the time where we have the opportunity to give and to share our gifts. So I invite you to visualize whatever form of giving that you choose. I visualize our website, the donate button, and PayPal. And we know that we have the freedom to give. And we give with love, not from fear, knowing that it is a blessing to be able to give, and a blessing to know that as we give, we receive. In full knowledge and the awareness that God is our source and consciousness is our supply. So we feel the energy of love that we are, and we give with this energy of love. And I invite you to bless these gifts with me. So if you would mute your mics and affirm this with me. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I choose to give and all that I am open to receive, and I am grateful. And now we